It's another edition of Time About the Movies, and today we're taking a look at the films of July 9th, 1999. We only have two movies to look at today, so let's just go ahead and jump on into it. We'll start off with the biggest new release of the weekend, and that is American Pie.
From Universal Pictures comes a story.
It's sort of sexual.
About the most important time.
She said she loves me.
Wow. Of our lives.
There is a gorgeous woman on my bed. You're not going to do anything about that? What am I going to do? Broadcast her over the internet? Oh, God.
American Pie.
This is the coolest thing I've ever seen.
So American Pie is basically the story of five guys who go to this fictional high school, and they make a pact to lose their virginity before their high school graduation. So, in a way, this is kind of a return to form for the teen sex comedy, because, of course, it was very prevalent in the 80s, and then there was kind of a dry spell for much of the 90s. There was very few teen sex comedies out there that actually did prove to be successful, but this is the one that really broke the mold and eventually led into the next decade, where the R-rated comedy, especially the R-rated summer comedy, became the common theme. Every year you'd have a big blockbuster R-rated comedy, and that would later pave the way for people like Judd Apatow to get into the game, make his name known, among other things as well. And of course, this movie led to a number of young stars in this movie: Jason Biggs, Chris Klein, Allison Hannigan, Natasha Lyonne, Thomas Ian Nichols, Tara Reid, Mina Suvari, Eddie K. Thomas, Sean William Scott, Shannon Elizabeth. Even seasoned veterans from SCTV, Eugene Levy and Jennifer Coolidge, came out of this film and became more prevalent names, even though they've been working in, SCTV and also mostly the Christopher Guest movies for a number of years. But this was the film that kind of broke them into the mainstream, and eventually they went on to have successful careers. I mean, Eugene Levy's an Emmy Award-winning actor now for his work on Schitt's Creek, and Jennifer Coolidge has been an Emmy-winning actress as well, and it's been in a number of shows as well, such as The White Lotus most recently, and stuff like Two Broke Girls, and also the Legally Blonde movies, just to name a couple of things. And the title of the film is a reference to a scene in the film where Jason Biggs' character is literally caught masturbating with a pie after being told that third base feels like warm apple pie. After that, he asks McDonald's or homemade. That's actually one of my favorite responses to a question like that. Like, I love how the Chris Klein's character basically tells Jason Biggs' character what sex is like, and it's just like warm apple pie, and then Jason Biggs just goes, McDonald's or homemade. That's one of those lines that doesn't really garner a whole lot of laughs, but it's one that I kind of chuckle at every time that happens. But he says that the writer, this Adam Hurst, also says the title also refers to the quest of losing one's virginity in high school, which is as American as apple pie. And the premise is not that clever. It's something that we've seen done over and over again, but like I said, this is the first time we've seen it work successfully since the 1980s. I mean, this is a film that really probably could not be made today because of how, how people can get so easily offended and how PC the world is getting, unfortunately. But they've tried to continue this in many different ways. They directed DVD spin-offs after the original series had ended. Some have been okay, others not so much. And even the original series of films, like the original American Pie trilogy, I think works fine on its own. And then they did American Reunion, and by 2012, that's only 13 years after this came out, it felt like they were really stretching to just bring this back and try to recapture that spirit of the older days. Like, it just didn't work as well as it did. I was kind of disappointed with American Reunion, honestly, when I saw it on the big screen. I was like, okay, this is the first time I'm seeing these guys in almost 10 years. Let's see if they can capture that magic again, and not so much. I mean, this was a perfect time capsule for the late 90s. I think this is something that just works on so many levels. You can look at it nowadays and see, like, okay, this is what it used to be like back in the day. This is what it usually would take for something like this to actually get a good laugh and actually work off some really funny stuff in here. There's a lot of really funny stuff in this movie, and everybody in this movie works their parts very well. I really liked a lot of the cast in this film. There's no person in here that I really hate, quite honestly, but it's very funny, it's very creative, it's very much a raunchy comedy, and a good raunchy comedy. It isn't a film it's a film that clearly knows what it's trying to do, and it knows how to do it well. Like, this is directed by Paul Weitz and Chris Weitz, who later become famed directors in their own rights. The two of them would make such films as Down to Earth, About a Boy, In Good Company, and then they kind of split apart again And that's kind of where their careers kind of took a nosedive, because Paul Weitz went to do stuff like Cirque du Freak, The Vampire's Assistant, Little Fockers, some movies that were not that great per se. And Chris Weitz, he went on to become a writer mostly for stuff for Disney. Like he did write some decent stuff: Cinderella, Rogue One. I was gonna say The Creator, but I haven't seen The Creator yet, so I can't really say if that's good or not. But he also did infamous stuff like Pinocchio, and he was also one of the director of the Twilight Saga: New Moon. So, pretty much after In Good Company, their careers really took a nosedive overall. But once in a while, they still make some decent stuff. Chris Weitz has actually made a couple of films Paul Weitz actually, I should say, actually has made a couple of films I've liked. The Mission with Tina Fey and Paul Rudd, and then recently Kevin Hart's Fatherhood, which I thought was really good. But this was kind of in the beginning of their early careers, where they were writing a comedy that was not only very funny and very raunchy and very much a mass appeal film, but it knew how to take chances and also tell a good story, and also throw in a little bit of a dramatic element to it. Not a whole lot per se, because most of this is your typical teen sex comedy, but it's a smartly written teen sex comedy, and it helps that you have a director like Paul Weitz and Chris Weitz, as well as this writer here, Adam Hertz, who knew exactly how to make the story work without feeling like another cliched riddled comedy. It felt like its own unique thing, and like I said, it helped to open the door for what the rest of the 2000s would open up in terms of these R-rated summer comedies becoming big hits. I mean, nobody really expected this to become the massive hit that it did, and all these people involved here have gone on to bigger and better things. I've mentioned a couple of them already, but Allison Hannigan, of course, was on How I Met Your Mother. Jason Biggs has had a couple of decent shows in his career. Sean William Scott had a good run for a number of years. Eddie K. Thomas is a prolific actor. Natasha Lyonne had that little bit of a lull after 2005, but she's really been coming into her own recently with some shows like, most recently, Poker Face, and then the other show, Russian Doll, which is absolutely brilliant stuff. Orange is the New Black, of course, is another one. So these people have gone on to bigger and better things, and it started with this film here, and it's still a really funny movie. I was really amazed at how much this held up after almost 25 years. It's still really funny to me. It's a film that I could still go back to after all these years and still get a lot of good laughs out of it. It's a film that probably could not be made today, per se, but I think we are starting to see a little bit of an attempt to try to make that come back. No Hard Feelings, I think, was the first example of trying to bring this genre back, and I thought that worked very well. So maybe there is some future. Maybe there is a future for films like this again, but we'll wait to see what happens there. But in the meantime, I really liked American Pie. It's a film that still holds up to me after all these years. Can't recommend it enough. American Pie, really good film. So with that said, let's go ahead and move on to the last one we have here, and that is Arlington Road.
Husband, father of three, the perfect neighbor,
Such a good man.
the perfect disguise. Boom. Arlington Road, rated R. Opens everywhere July 9th.
So you basically have the story of this widowed George Washington University professor who suspects his new neighbors are involved in terrorism and become obsessed with foiling their terrorist plot. The film was heavily inspired by the growing concerns of the 90s regarding the White Ring militia movement, the Ruby Ridge incident, the Waco siege, the Oklahoma City bombing, and even as in this year we have the Columbine shootings. Jeff Bridges, Tim Robbins, Joan Cusack, and Hope Davis are among the cast in here. Mark Pellington directed this. He'd later go on to direct the Mothman Prophecies and also U2 3D. But probably the most notable name from this was Aaron Kruger. Now, Aaron Kruger is a name that you're very much familiar with, and you've definitely probably seen his work before, but he wrote the script and actually was given the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences Nicol Fellowship in 1996, and actually they sold this movie for $6 million. So this was a pretty big deal for a relatively first-time writer in Aaron Kruger. He'd later go on to find success with he'd be put onto more, not really success, but he put onto more bigger blockbuster films, or films that had higher ambitions to it, like Scream 3. He was the writer for that. He wrote Reindeer Games. He wrote The Ring. He also wrote the sequel, The Ring 2. He wrote The Skeleton Key, The Brothers Grimm, the Transformers movies, Revenge of the Fallen and Dark of the Moon, as well as Age of Extinction, Ghost in the Shell, Dumbo. He had probably easily his biggest success with Top Gun Maverick recently. He was one of the writers on that film, and he's also writing another film with that same director, Joseph Kosinski. But he was a pretty big deal for a number of years, and this film was seen as kind of a, I mean, it was a decent hit critic-wise. It did okay with critics, but wasn't really a big financial hit per se. It made its money back. It made over $41 million on a budget of $31 million, but there was probably some higher ambitions to it, considering what they had spent on it and what the talent on screen and off screen. But as far as the film itself goes, I think it has some good ideas to it, just not the right execution. This feels like something that is like, it should be presented more as a serious film, but at times it feels like one of those screwball comedies. It's like I could easily see this becoming a screwball comedy if you put somebody like a Seth Rogen, or even at this time period, somebody like who's a big comedy star back then, Jim Carrey or Adam Sandler. Like there's never a point in this film where it feels like it should be going as seriously as they were planning it out to be. That trailer makes it out to be, but no, it never really feels like that, and it ends up being kind of ridiculous in the end. I think what does carry it through are the performances overall. Jeff Bridges, Tim Robbins, Joan Cusack, Hope Davis. I think they do a pretty good job in here, carrying as much as they can with the film. It doesn't lead to anything that's considered a classic by any means, but it's perfectly fine for what it is. But you feel like it could have been a whole lot better with everything that had been setting up up to this point before the film actually begins. But as it stands, it's just kind of like it's okay, like it just comes by, you watch it once, you feel like you got what you wanted, but you have no real intention of ever watching it again. That's how I really feel about this particular film, so that's Arlington Road. So on that note, we wrap up another edition of Time About the Movies, and we've got a big one next time. We got 5 movies to look at, notable films, including Stanley Kubrick's final film, Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman in Eyes Wide Shut. We also have the cult classic Lake Placid, the film The Wood, Muppets from Space, and probably the most influential movie of the year, and one of the biggest surprise hits of the year, the Blair Witch Project, opened up this particular weekend coming up, and we'll look at all 5 of those movies on the next episode. It should be a pretty big one, so be on the lookout for that one. That'll be the next episode we look at, but until then, thank you very much for watching, and if you want to see more videos like this, please hit the playlist on the next page, check out the previous episode. Also, don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button if you want to see more videos like this on this channel. So with that said, I am off. I will see you next time, and until then, as always, take care.